Welcome to Top Bracket Podcast, where top performers share the strategies behind real success.
Welcome back to the Top Bracket Podcast, where we have conversations with high performers who refuse to stay average. I'm your host, mr.FourAM, and on this show, we go beyond titles, polished bios. We go beyond titles and polished bios to uncover real thinking, real experiences, and real decisions that shape exceptional careers. Today's guest is someone whose work has created impact across education, healthcare, and leadership for decades. She has spent her career not only preparing nurses for the profession, but helping underserved and underprivileged students in their attempt. This is a conversation about mission, standards, systems, leadership, and what it really takes to build pathways for people to rise. Let's get into it. Today's guest is Dr. Diane Breckenridge, the founder and consultant of Strategies for Success for Education, Research, and Practice. Founding Dean and Professor of Nursing at Westcliff University in Irvine, California, and presently the Director of Nursing at Merritt College in my hometown, Oakland, California. Diane brings more than 50 years of experience in nursing leadership and more than 25 years in corporate and institutional leadership to the table. With a career dedicated to advancing nursing education and helping underserved and underrepresented students not only gain access to nursing school, but succeed all the way through graduation and licensure, she's one of the best. Her award-winning work has also supported nurses seeking to continue their educational journey into advanced degrees like the MSN, Nurse Practitioner Path, and a doctorate in nursing. Diane, welcome to the Top Bracket.
Thank you very much. This is just wonderful to be able to meet other people and to speak about what's so important, not just to me, but to many others.
Beautiful. I'm looking forward to getting into it. I want to start at the foundation because people who dedicate this much of their life to a mission usually have a deeper story behind it. When you look back across your career, what experience most shaped the way you think about service, leadership, and impact today?
Others doing what they did for me. So I came from a family, lots of love, but we didn't have much money, which is typical of nurses. And I did very well in school. And people supported me very much in school. But I had a father who went to 5th grade and a mother who went to 12th grade. They really wanted to make sure that I got to school every day, which I did. But we also needed a little help. My dad was a disabled veteran of World War II. And when he became a disabled veteran from being blown out of a foxhole in the Anzio battle in Italy, and he went in very young, right from the orphanage where he was, and his siblings were also all in orphanages because of the flu that had been the epicenter was right in Philadelphia, where I am from and where he was from. In Philadelphia, and that Spanish flu, the mother passed away when he was only a baby, and from the Spanish flu, not from childbirth, even though it was right after childbirth. And the father passed away 6 weeks later, and they're in the mass graves in Philadelphia. Because of that, he was drafted in World War II because they all enlisted. And they enlisted a little early, even before 18. And it turns out he was blown out of a foxhole, like I said. And he wound up in a coma. And he signed on the dotted line for the 15 to 25% many veterans received that. And so we got no benefits. So we got a little bit, very little bit. And we all went to work. I was 12. It's on my Social Security. I was 12. Ready to help the family. My brother was 14. But more importantly was getting the food at the end of the day because we were eating mainly pancakes and peanut butter and jelly up to that, the family. Many people came forth when I was in high school, especially my senior year. They actually brought my parents in and said, I will be the one that will be able to get scholarships of my siblings. And you really should let us help her get scholarships. Back then, 1970, when I graduated in 1971 from a public school system outside of Philadelphia, I was there for under the Health Educational Welfare Loan Forgiveness that teachers received or nurses. Now, I wanted to be a teacher or nurse since 4th grade, even younger, like 4 years old, I would say, but really wanted to be a teacher or nurse. Okay. My aunt was an Army nurse, and I wanted to be just like her. Now, she was in the convent, left the convent to go into World War II. She was also an orphan, so that's why she went to the convent. And it turns out that I really emulated to be like her, like I said, I'm on health, education, and welfare loan forgiveness. So we had to work the 5 years, 10 hours a week for the underserved. And that was as a volunteer, along with when we worked. And that's how we did that. And so that made it really important to me to make sure we figured out how to help others go on to school. Also, I did receive an anonymous scholarship. It was from a major donor in Philadelphia. I did not know it was from this person until after he passed away, and his wife and then explained it to me. It turns out that that family, Dixon Widener family, when I received that anonymous scholarship, that helped pay a little bit more. Now I still work 2 jobs in nursing school.
Oh, wow.
I worked every other weekend as a nursing assistant at Silver Stream Nursing Home and at Roslyn Nursing Home. Many of us did not have a car or enough to get to school, so we hitchhiked back then. We stood on the corner, and after a while, everyone knew us. So we lived at the school. So it was Sundays we had to hitchhike and Friday nights to get home. So what happened is I got to nursing school, and that's where the impact was really severe. It was there when they said to us, look to the right, look to the left, only half will be here. The rest will not make it. I was appalled. I became president of my class at that time. I was also president of like the teachers and the nursing place in the school of high school. You know what I mean? I was always active. I always did a lot. So it turns out that I really wanted to make a difference on that. I called it the new access student. So it was at that time, my really good friend, she did great in school. I did well in school, but I was working so many jobs. It was hard, but I still did it. We had to sit on the porch of the school. We were not allowed into class by the dean there until we got the money from the government.
Oh, wow.
And so we taught each other. We could not afford books, any of us. And we used the libraries. We could not afford even spiral notebooks, any kind of notebooks. Most of them were bound back then. And so we had to just use scrap paper. And that's what we did. And there were 12 of us on the health, education, and welfare. And we weren't on welfare. That doesn't mean that the family's on welfare. It means it's out of HRSA, Health Systems of the United States, which was wonderful. And therefore, we had to keep a 3.0. And so it was from that, I called it the new access student. In 1988, I changed it to the strategies for success. And the reason I did that was students were embarrassed if they went to a tutoring center. They go like this, right? As I go to a tutoring center. So I wanted it to keep it positive. And I wanted people to think, maybe you also have a grant where you have to have a 3.0 and you have a 2.8. So you're not failing, but you need that. But then there are the ones who are failing that really need it, but you don't want them to be embarrassed. So I wanted to keep it positive. I'm a very optimistic person, and it really worked. In fact, I just the other day got another email telling me that another college put a Strategies for Success Center. And that was the idea. So I have it. It's on the web, as people will see. It shows the model. I am supposed to be writing a book, and I do have the prospectus done, and I've been working on it. People have been asking me for it. A lot of grants, and the grants are all public knowledge, and they're out there also. They're at the HRSA, or they're at the HCI in California. And if people use that model, which is very generic, by the way, because it's how you come into nursing, pipeline in. So maybe there needs to be some remediation programs, but there's strategies for success. Don't forget that. So we don't have anyone feel bad. And then it's access into education. It's retention. That's the key. Retention. We don't want people to come into a profession that are struggling. We want to help them before they come in. Prevention, intervention. So if they are given the tools and the strategies before they come in, it's still hard, but at least we can keep them retained. So I've taken programs from 32% attrition and 22% down to 0 to 3% attrition by making sure the strategies are there and making sure that they are engaged and everyone's engaged. And then lastly, making sure that they graduate within the time frame. Now, there's always somebody who's going to have a baby during schooling, or someone gets sick, and unfortunate things happen. Life gets in the way. But the majority should be able to finish with their cohort. They come in, and those that cannot, we bring them in with the next cohort, and we make sure they don't feel bad again. That's the whole key, to keep everyone understanding that things happen and we're going to get through it. And then graduate, but don't end there. We got to pass the NCLEX RN. Or if they're in a nurse practitioner program, they have to pass the certification exam. I'm educated also as a nurse practitioner and advanced practice nurse.
Oh, wow.
And that was many years ago. And I do not practice now, but I did practice as an advanced practice nurse back in Philadelphia. But when I came here, I got asked to mainly work with programs. When I say came here to California in 2014, that I chose to just stay on this work. And so therefore, with that said and done, we have to really track our students. So I really believe in alumni. I love alumni. And I do a lot with the schools where I've been before. I stay in touch. And with LinkedIn, everyone can stay in touch, or with some social media. And it's really terrific that we make sure our students know where their home is, and we are there to help them. If they don't pass that NCLEX, put them in boot camps right away, even if it's during lunch. I've done it with Zoom with students who are working during lunch hour to make sure now they pass at least the second time. But we want them to pass the first time, because number one, it's upsetting. It's embarrassing to them. They feel terrible. On top of it, the schools are rated on passing NCLEX the first time. If they go too low under the percentages, they can get put on warning.
And what does that mean when they put on warning?
If they get put on warning, they have 1 year to give a plan, a success plan. And that's where I come in a lot, or they look at my material or other people's material who are doing sort of the same type of work. And I'm hope more and more do it. Because again, there's so many schools that are in need right now, because it's very difficult. Nursing is a very difficult educational preparation. And you really need that college prep for RN from high school. And some don't have that algebra, biology, and chemistry. They didn't take those courses. So it's better to have them take them. And most of your schools, your community colleges, your state schools, they have those courses that are before you go to college. And that's when we get into pipeline programs. And I do a lot of pathway programs so that we can make sure the students are prepared. And let's face it.
Between a pipeline program and a pathway program?
It's the same, basically.
Same, basically. Okay.
So I had programs back in Philadelphia from third grade on. When I got to California at Charles R. Drew, they had a lot of the pathway programs over at Martin Luther King. They had a wonderful program for the students, not from kindergarten all the way through. And when I was in Baltimore, we worked on programs there also when I was getting my PhD and really doing the major research for this work. So during these years, when we prepare students, if they identify they want to go into nursing, we can make sure they get the right coursework. And if someone, let's face it, some people are just aren't as good at one subject versus another. So there's 3 parts of strategies for success. There's the academic, there's the family, and the last one is economic, the financial. So the academic, we're a testing profession. You need to take a test to become an RN. So if you come into a nursing school and you say, I can't take a test, I get nervous. We got to figure out a strategy that you don't get nervous. And I believe test, retest without major consequence. When I say without major consequence, test, retest works. You test and we retest for improvement, not to keep you out of nursing school, not to keep you away from your profession, but to get you equipped to go in so you're not failing, that you're able to do the work. And if someone is not really good at testing or math for medications, how do we get over that? We have to give more, let's say, coursework on it, even though we call it strategies for success. When they pay through government grants and such, you usually have to write tutor in there. than
Okay.
there are tutors. You just don't want the whole center to be called a tutoring center.
Understood.
You still have tutors, so don't get me wrong. And you
Okay.
still have people working on remediation. That's okay. But you just don't want the center where they're coming to say tutoring center. That's what I'm trying to change around and have it like a success center. All the strategies for success center. That's what it's called back in Philadelphia, where I received my first grant of my 33 million in funded external funding. And we just got another million for the school up in Oakland through the chancellor's office. Now, again, that always goes only to the school.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're in forms of scholarships to students, and sometimes they're in form to do the infrastructure of the school, to have more testing, to have more simulation labs, to have more faculty, all the things that you may need, have a success center. It depends. So that's how it has come forward.
Okay.
And every year or two, I've been able to get external funding for the school where I'm the dean and or director. And that's been 7 times, by the way. So even though I've worked with 50 schools, this is my 50th right now,
Wow.
I haven't always been the dean or director. Back when I was developing the program, I was assistant professor and then associate professor, then full professor with tenure. I did 29 schools back then in Pennsylvania. And then when I came to California, I did more schools. And in between, I've done some work in West Virginia. They brought me there for a school, and that might only be for 2 days. And then with Zoom, I can get on with Zoom. One other school was in New York, and I was able to do Zoom with them. And then Florida A&M, they had me come there, and I worked there. Now, all these schools weren't in big trouble or anything. I just want you to know that. They
Okay.
might need something that they want to add. So Florida A&M, they were going for accreditation, and they had a wonderful program, and they wanted me to come and go over the accreditation process with them. And then we did the different work to get them ready for it. So again, it's not always that they're in warning. There's a few schools that have been in warning. Yes, approximately 7 have been in warning. And you have to go in and really make sure the infrastructure is where it needs to be. Maybe the syllabi have to be worked on. Maybe they haven't been testing the students. Some of these testing programs, they're expensive. So it's good to try to get a grant for them. They're not cheap. These testing, I'm talking about the testing programs that are nationally normed under the companies. And they definitely work. And they use that in medical school too, by the way. They use nationally normed tests to make sure the MDs are ready. It should never be done as a negative or a punitive reason. It should be done as a strategy for positive outcomes.
Well, let me ask you this. What makes it different from the way student support usually is approached in higher education? Why aren't they doing it the way you are doing it if it's a proven success model?
Well, a lot are getting calls. I just had another email before we got on California for 2 other schools.
Nice.
Would I be interested? I mean, I wish there were more hours in the day. I mean, I really am passionate about this. You nailed it. You didn't even know me before, as you said, but you read about the work apparently and asked me to do this. This is so important. And I wish there were more hours in the day. And I'm so happy when I hear those that I had hired in the center back at LaSalle University in Philadelphia, they are branching out. Everyone there is branching out and doing this kind of work, which is so important. One is now at a new college program at Chestnut Hill College. I had met with them years ago, and they did move ahead with the College of Nursing, which is wonderful. Another where most of my work originally began was at Abington Hospital School of Nursing, the old-fashioned diploma programs, which I went to too, and the whole idea to move them into BSN programs. A few went into ADN programs, and the majority went into BSN programs. And that program now, Abington Memorial Hospital, where I received my first funding for this program, and I received that from the Dixon Widener family back in the days, which was wonderful.
Nice.
That family was very supportive. It was then named the Dixon School of Nursing at Abington Memorial Hospital. It is now part of the Jefferson healthcare system. which is just
Okay.
terrific. They have 32 hospitals, and I'm privileged to still serve on one of the boards for that hospital. So I'm very proud of that. And I'm able to go on once a month by Zoom. They bring me on and others on. I'm a sustaining member of that board. And a lot of scholarships and nursing support has come from that board,
That's
which is
beautiful.
very important. So again, I think we're seeing this happening more and more. And you're absolutely right. We need it everywhere.
I want to stay on this idea of outcomes for a moment, because one of the things that stands out in your work that I'm getting is you're not just talking about inspiration, you're talking about real progression, completion, and measurable success. Getting students in the door is one thing. Building an environment where they can truly succeed is something else completely entirely. Why is it not enough to simply create access for students, also building systems that help them persist, graduating past the INSCLECT? That's such an
Yeah,
interesting.
NCLEX, yes.
That's INCLECT.
You're doing great. Yeah, NCLEX. You have to, I call it stay the course. And I have to say, I was said to me the other day, where you just were a couple years back in California, Charles R. Drew University, they
Yep.
actually have your statement, Dr. Breckenridge, stay the course. I went on, and there it was, stay the
Oh,
course. As I say to the students, you really have to stay the course. It's a testing profession. We test you an RN. Now, maybe people want to change that, but it's not changed. So we've got to keep that in mind. Prevention, intervention is how I really do my work from the very beginning. And that's based on another theory of nursing. To really make sure you do an assessment and make sure that any areas that someone needs more help on, they get that help. The only way to do that is, I hate to say it, is an entrance exam. And there is an entrance exam. It's known as the T's, and there's others ones. There's one known as the HESI. They really emulate the SATs that we've all heard about, the
yeah.
SATs, but they make it more nursing. So they developed it as more nursing. The National League for Nursing even has one that we used to use called the NET. These tests are very similar for nursing that they are for medicine when you hear about the med tech for people to go into medicine. And they're at the level of a college prep level for a student to go into that field. Now, there are going to be students who are going to get a 90% in this test, even a 96%. But there are students who receive a 75 in each of the areas: verbal, science, and math.
Okay.
And if they
What?
get a 75, that's average. It's not bad. That's good.
But that
Okay.
gets
You don't have to have a 96.
you have to have a 96.
75. Yeah, there are students who get a 96. But you're 75. Okay. Now, the community college system goes with a 62 average. And a 62, if that's what the community college system does, that's what you do, because you have to stick to the rules of wherever you're working.
Okay.
But if someone has a 62 average, they might have a 30 in math and maybe a 90 in verbal and maybe a 60 in, let's say, the other one, which is science. But the problem is, by looking at that, you better work with that student, even though they can get in, because they have at least a 62 average. Better really work on the math part. Because again, we all know that there is, in this day, and there's been for a long time, quite a few math or med errors in the workplace. Now, that's not just nursing, that's others too. So don't get me wrong, but we don't want that to happen. So if someone is having difficulty in that area and you can identify it from the beginning, why not work on it? If someone wants to sing on stage, right? They want to sing on stage, they want to be a singer, and they're having troubles hitting a note, they're going to work on that. If someone wants to be a sports player and they want to make those cuts, you're going to work on certain areas.
Okay.
If you want to do anything, you want to work on that area. And I think we just have to keep it positive, and that
So-
someone isn't
Would you say that
upset
every
about it.
exam is a way of finding someone's competencies so you can know where they should start?
Yes. So not to keep someone out of school,
Okay.
but to really determine that assessment. Because when you talk about, well, is that all right to do? And people get concerned about that. Well, here's where the real problem is. Someone comes into the program, family or they have taken on an extra mortgage, let's say, to pay for it. It delays them from working. But when they do finish, they have a wonderful position and
Yeah.
a career. So they want to do that. So why don't you want to make sure they're equipped to do it? That's the key.
Well, that leads to my next question. There are talented people everywhere, but talent alone does not guarantee successful outcomes. We all know that. In your experience, what's the biggest barrier that keeps promising students from becoming successful nurses?
Okay, so I have what's called a risk assessment instrument. It's a risk assessment profile strategies for success. Now, I wanted to just call it the strategies for success profile, but those that taught me my PhD work back at University of Maryland and then my postdoc work at University of Pennsylvania said, unless you have a problem, no one gives you government money when you're putting for a grant. So you need to call it risk. So I did that. So I make sure I call it strategies for success, assessment profile, or the other way around, whichever way you want to call it. Okay. The key is it doesn't just have academics on it. It also has family factors and it also has financial. And again, that doesn't keep you out of school, or it just gives us more of a profile of you so we can help you. We can come up with the strategies. If someone could have, let's say, they could have 75, 75, and 75 in an entrance exam, and they can have 3 kids. This happens a lot. And they don't have anyone to help them. And they
Oh,
got
wow.
to be at the hospital at 6:30 in the morning for their clinical, and they have to be in class by 8. And they have nobody to help them. And in my day, we didn't have childcare either. We had no maternity leave until my oldest was already a couple years old, and my youngest was already born. So there was no maternity leave and no childcare. Well, we're talking quite a few years ago. But the key point here is we started to have childcare, so we were able at our hospital and school of nursing back outside of Philadelphia to put childcare in there. And the students got priority. And I know where I am right now, they have childcare up campus, which is terrific.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
And very cool. But you gotta have it start if you have to have the students at the clinical site at 6:30, you better have an early childcare. And there's the problem. I literally have gone to childcare places. I did this outside of Philadelphia. I did it here in California and find childcare places that will open at 6 for these students. Now, some will, and they charge a lot of money, right? So
Yeah.
now you need a donor or a grant to help pay for that. So I have done that. That's what I've done. So it's not just like you're saying, the academic. You could have someone who could get straight A's, but they can't get to school to learn the information. And they're very stressed about it because of their children. And that's another area we have to help the students with. That's why we need counselors. And so my strategies for success model has not only those that are tutors, even though we don't call it a tutoring center, keep that in mind, but also a case manager. You need a
Okay.
case manager or counselors to make sure that those areas that life gets in the way can be minimized. That's key. There's another area, speaking English as a second language, which is really wonderful. I have had students who speak 2 and 3 languages. It puts me to shame because I only speak 1, English. Now, I did take Spanish, and I was pretty good at it years ago, but I'm not good at it anymore. And it turns out, because I kept it up. So
Yeah.
it turns out that with that, as far as speaking another language, we have to give more English because the test is done in English. And that's the same in other countries. If you're in another country, the test is done in those countries. So
Mhm.
again, that's understandable, but we still have to do prevention intervention. And we're very proud of those students who speak other languages. And we want more ethnicities. We want more people from all walks of life in nursing. But we still have to understand that if that verbal is low, it might not be that they don't understand the English language, but there might be a piece that we still have to work on. And that will help them pass the test and do better in their profession as time goes on. Because there's other tests to become certified, all those others. So again, then the biggie is, and this is where I really have been fortunate, and that is the financial piece. And so 3.5 million that I was able to obtain for Charles R. Drew University gave $10,000 to those students who needed the scholarship money. Now, again, I don't touch that. And when I say that, I allow the financial aid departments to do that. We have the same at LaSalle University. That was one of my first government grants. That was only $1 million. So that gave some of the students money. One student, to get to school, he needed to take the bus, and he had not enough money to even take the bus, and we were able to give tokens out for that at one point. So again, the financial piece, and then we've been very fortunate by those that have been able to donate, and that Dixon Widener family in the Philadelphia area for our schools and our nursing students. They gave enough related.
So the biggest takeaway that I've had from our conversation so far is that nursing is one of the most essential professions in our society, but the pipeline that develops nurses is under pressure. My question now is what concerns you most, and what gives you the most hope about where the profession is heading?
Well, right now there's a big decrease in government funding, especially from HRSA, the health services. And I think that is so important. The other is that it's being stated that nursing is not a profession. And we are under the professional nursing law. So we are a profession. And that's being stated so that extra grant money cannot be given to the nurse practitioners that go back to school. So I think these are areas that have to be attended to. And we need to make sure it's clearer that we are obviously a profession, and we are a profession that is essential, and that we do need the funding that is very important for the reasons I brought up.
That is who? Is it our sitting president that's claiming that nursing is not a profession?
It's the Department of Education.
On what? That makes zero sense to me as to why they would try to say that nursing is not a profession.
So there's different facets of nursing. There's the nursing assistant. There's the licensed vocational nurse. That would be at the technical level. But then there's the RN, the registered nurse, that is under the professional nursing law of each state. That is called the professional nursing law. So that is the level, that is the profession. Then there's also the situation where we have the RN can be for 2 years. It can be for 3 years, the old-fashioned diploma way. But by the way, when it was the old-fashioned diploma way, you still went 36 months. You went year round. So it was 36 months. It was the same amount of time as a 4-year program. It wasn't lesser as a 2-year program. And that's the programs that I converted with other people back in Pennsylvania to have 4 years. And that's the same as years ago with teaching. The teachers used to go to what was called the common school, and they would therefore just go for 3 years, but it was year round also. And they converted that to your 4-year program. So it's almost identical. I showed that in my doctoral work. And I went to a school like that. I went to a state teachers college, East Stroudsburg, after I had my RN. And I actually had student teaching, did my slides, the whole bit, and really understood it. So again, we have these obstacles that really can clearly be not obstacles because we already have the infrastructure of the professional nursing law, which says professional right in.
That makes okay.
So as far as I think the other area are donors. That's where I have received much of the monies to really help the students, which has been really very helpful. I know that Mackenzie Scott Foundation, she is very helpful. She gives a lot of funding here in California for the underserved and has done she's just a wonderful person. I never met her personally, but when I hear what she does, that's wonderful. We have many other foundations. We have a major foundation coming out of Ohio that's helping the nursing profession. So that's where we really need people to help. Even playing the piano. John Legend played the piano right at St. Francis, right in the Watts section of Los Angeles during COVID for the nurses. They were so happy. He's such a nice person, and he really cares about people. And then when you start looking at some of our major people who've been out there in the public eye, Paul McCartney, his mother, Mary, she was a nurse. And so he, I know it's his office, not him personally, but he sends text to me. And I always say, we love it that his mother's a nurse and whatever he could do to help nurses is wonderful. And we can't thank him enough. And those kind of things. I think we have to stay connected to those that really understand. There's always a nurse in the group. If you're at an airport and you say, any nurses around here, I've done it, you'll find one or two nurses. And I think positively we have to stay. And we have to be realistic, which I am, and know when there's a problem, and know when we have to go to Washington and speak to people on the Hill. So Diane Feinstein, she came to meet with me when I was in Washington about 5 years ago. And she said, was I the same Diane Breckenridge that did the strategies for success from Pennsylvania? And I said, I am. And I had received a beautiful award from the Nurses Association for the work back at that time. And it turns out she actually brought a proclamation to Charles R. Drew for me, which was very lovely. And that we were helping the underserved and the under-resourced. That's how I like to bring it forth. So,
is there anything in closing you would like to share with the audience about strategies for success, your passion, your mission, where you'd like to see it go from here?
well, don't forget to bring up to our young people and even those that are older, become a nurse. My oldest student was 63 years old back in the Philadelphia area. She worked with many, many years. A lot of nurses go into their 80s. Then high school students going into nursing. It's just wonderful to go right from high school like I did. And many of my classmates did. It's wonderful. But it's okay if someone decides to go after they even have another degree. We have a wonderful pathway for that, where it's called entry-level masters. So if you could have a degree in dance and take approximately 7 courses in the sciences and math and a few other areas and go into nursing and get a master's degree. It's just wonderful. The approaches that could be taken.
I didn't realize the depth of the importance of the nursing industry. I also didn't know that they were trying to discredit it as a profession, which is wild to me. That makes no sense.
Yeah,
Every
well,
time
we're working on. I'm going to Washington with the nephrology nurses. I'm actually one of the presidents of the Nephrology Nurses Association. Now that's volunteerism because of all the cutbacks in Medicare, Medicaid that's occurring, and all of our patients on dialysis that cannot work and therefore are under Medicaid. And so that is resurfacing. And that's a lot of the work I did back when I received my doctorate work. And I worked a lot out of Washington with CMS and Social Security Administration at that time. And again, with my doctoral work. So it wasn't like I was a paid employee, but I was a volunteer. I was a chair of their grants for the healthcare services. There's lots of chairs and lots of grants, and we'll keep that in mind. But again, that is resurfacing that work. And we just started a scholarship program in our chapter in Los Angeles, and we were able to take a student and finance her to go. So there's a lot of things that can be done. It just takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and stay as positive as we can, but realistic, that we still have to be out there saying what we need for our students, our patients, and our nurses.
Yeah, this was a powerful conversation. Your story is a reminder that real leadership is not just about personal achievement, but it's about building pathways and raising standards and creating systems that help other people rise with confidence and dignity as well. Thank you for sharing not only your experience, but your wisdom, your heart for students, and your perspective on what meaningful success really looks like is truly, truly honorable. And everyone listening to this has been another episode of the Top Bracket Podcast, where we sit down with high performers and who refuse to stay average. If this conversation spoke to you, Make sure you stay connected, share the episode, and keep building at a level that reflects who you are called to become. Until next time.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Top Bracket Podcast, where top performers share their playbook. Subscribe so you never miss the next episode.